Hi, everybody. My name is Kris Newton with a K. Um, this is the first time I'm ever doing something like this. Kind of, sort of. I'm kind of in a in between phase right now. So I'm learning as I'm going. Um, I want to thank my friends Ray and one of my best friends Chandra for encouraging me to follow through with this. So, um, if I keep glancing down, I'm sorry because I'm looking at notes. Because if I don't, then I'm just gonna wander and be all over the place, and I don't want to do that. Um, um, like I said, my name is Kris Newton. I was born in Minnesota. Um, I am 54 years old, and I am legally blind. Um, we lived in Minnesota until 1981 when we moved down here to Arizona. And I've pretty much been in Arizona most of my life with a short stint living. I went back to Minnesota to live with my grandparents after high school. But for the most part, I've lived here. This is home. Don't like the cold, so Minnesota is not home anymore. It hasn't been for a long time, but I grew up on comic books. I love comic books. Comic books taught me how to read, and that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a comic book writer. I thought I could draw. Could barely draw stick figures, so that was never in the cards for me. Was to be an artist, but I love to write. I used to write stories in junior high, high school. A bunch of different stuff. Tried to write a book a couple times based on some Dungeons and Dragons characters that we had with friends, but nothing ever panned out of it. When I moved back in '93, I met a wonderful woman, young lady that I worked with. We ended up getting together and we had two boys, Gabriel and Logan. Gabriel came first, 1998. And it was around that time that I wanted to get back into the comic books, the writing and stuff. I had been working on a story since 1995, 1996, so it's older than my kids. Spring is an artist. She was an artist. She was a very, very talented artist. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get together with her. Maybe she could help me pursue as the artist for my comic books. Well, that didn't happen. But instead, what ended up happening was we decided to form a company called Forever Knights Productions, FNP. And we were looking for people to help fill the book, so to speak. I didn't want any of my stuff in it because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. It's been a long time since that time, 25 years ago. But we found a bunch of local people, writers and artists. Um, Eldon Calger, who has since moved back east. Shia, I can't even remember Shia's last name. Shia, Scott Godlewski, um, Timothy Kinder, Sean Ross, um, and I can't even remember what his partner's name was. But we got all these guys together and we created a comic book called Distant Voices. It was an anthology series, and it had four different stories in it. And we got together with All About Books and Comics. We found all these people at All About Books and Comics. They came to our portfolio review. I actually got to meet Jay Photos, who was working for Todd McFarlane at the time on Sav and Twitch. He came out just as we were leaving, as we were finished up, and he gave me an 8x10 of Spawn that he had colored, and hoping to get work from us, but it ended up being a black and white book. So, I've been friends with him since that time. I've been a big fan of Jay's, but we ended up shuffling the book around. But for the most part, the original three of the original four stories were in there. Um, this young man, Scott Godlewski, ended up doing our alternate cover, which um, we ended up getting into San Diego Comic-Con in 2001, and we were up next to some amazing guys from Canada on one side of us, and the other side of us was Phil Hester and Andy Park. And those two guys were just amazing. I think that at the time they were drawing and coloring with Kevin Smith on Green Arrow at the time, I believe. But, that was our first foray into publishing. It never got off the ground after that one issue, which I still have to this day, except for this cover that was done by Scott Goloweski. I have one copy of that left, and Scott went on to work for Image Comics, DC Comics, Marvel Comics. He was the illustrator, he was the artist on the recent Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes. I think it was last year or the year before. He's done Copperhead, he's done some Batman, he's done Superman, he's done just about everything in DC, in the DC universe. He's worked for Vertigo, and I met him before he ever became I was the first one to publish his stuff, so that was an honor on my end. One of the people that I knew from he was 18, 19 years old, but I met him, I published his first work. It was a great honor for me, and I still have that original cover and one of those comics that he signed. But if I keep glancing down, I'm sorry, it's my notes. So that was in 2001. Forever Knights Productions kind of folded and imploded and exploded, and we just kind of went off on our own after that. So I kept writing, but it was never really anything for me to publish. It was always a goal in the back of my head. And then 2011 happened, 10 years later. A lot of stuff happened in that 10 years. I split up with my boys' mom. It was rough. It was really rough, and bouncing from job to job. And then 2011 hit, and I lost my sight. I had a stroke, is what I was told from an eye doctor about 5 or 6 years after the fact, that I had a stroke and I lost all vision in my left eye. Just a little back before that, I've worn glasses since I was 2, and they were the really, really thick Coke bottle type glasses. So I was teased relentlessly when I was a child, and it's not something that you want to hear when you're a child. I was teased mercilessly, 4 eyes, the whole gamut of stuff. But losing my sight in my early 40s rattled me to the core. I knew that I would eventually lose my sight, and I would become blind in some way. I never expected it to be that early in my life. I was thinking 50s, 60s, maybe even my 70s, but not before I even hit 41. And so I've been legally blind for about 14 years now. The reason why I'm not wearing the really, really thick glasses is because I had cataracts in my right eye, my good eye, and they were able to replace the cataracts with the lens with the prescription for my glasses. What I just took off my head right here are readers, just basic plain readers. And even then, I'm having trouble reading my own writing. So after the stroke, I met somebody by the name of Justin, and he needed help with his business. if anybody's from Phoenix and they know Justin Saint Leather, I was the blind guy checking IDs at the mine. So that was always the running joke, is they have the blind guy running the door checking IDs. So, but I was depressed. I was depressed for about a year. Losing your eyesight is no laughing matter. It is probably the worst thing that ever happened to me, the first worst thing that ever happened to me as an adult. I was depressed, and because of that depression, I didn't move much. I didn't do much. Being unemployed and with no income and relying on your family that is already struggling financially was a kick in the gut, a kick in the balls, so to speak. It was, and I got the diabetes because of it. I was not taking care of myself like I should have been, and it was the lowest point in my life ever. And Justin would always tell me, because we would be out in the middle of the summer, early in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, doing a yard sale in front of the mine, so that we could open up that night. It was tough. And he would always tell me, "You're blind, not stupid. You're blind, you're not stupid." So I kind of took that to heart after being offended, and applied to vocational rehab. And that was how I found the Foundation for Blind Children. And I mean, granted, there were a couple other ones here in town that were also available. There was one in Tucson. There was Savvy, which is on the east side of the valley, and then there was Foundation for Blind Children in the north part of the valley. I chose the Foundation for Blind Children. I don't know why. It just felt, you go to a place and it just feels right. It feels good. And that's where I went. And I was there for their adult program. And it was absolutely amazing. I did learn how to read Braille. I'm probably forgotten it by now, since it's been 12 or 13 years since I've graduated from there. I still have a computer with the programs and stuff that people, that they put on there so that I can use them, so I can see better. And to graduate the program, you needed to have a business. You needed to figure out what you wanted to do. And at that time, I decided that I wanted to go back into publishing, which is something that they've never had anybody ask for. So it was a brand new process with me and them, because I'm not a programmer. I'm not a computer programmer. I'm barely able to function with my phone. I can use my computer. But when it comes to the fancy stuff, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I like Sun Tzu, the Art of War. You surround yourself with people smarter than you, and that's what I was trying to do. To surround myself with people who were way smarter than me, who could help me figure out how to move this program forward. Because what I wanted to do was create a program that would allow people to listen to our comic books, that they could download it, they could have the issues, and we would have a narrator that would narrate and describe each of the panels, and voice actors who would act out the characters. And I was able to find 3 amazing non-traditional voice actors. These people had no experience, except for maybe Peter, who had a little bit, but the other 2, Doug, who has a speech impediment. He has a brain issue, and so he has a speech impediment. He stutters. The other lady, Denise, signed, so she knew about that. And it was an eclectic group of people who came together for a common goal of trying to produce this program. our first artist, Heather Moffat, was amazing. By the way, she got the characters right away. She helped create their look and did our first page. And the actors, we went to a studio. The actors narrated that page, and it came out perfect. You can probably find it on our YouTube channel, core6media. KORE, the number 6 media on YouTube. You can find it there. But, you know, with that program, we got a panel at the time, Phoenix Comic Con in 2015. And me and Hara and Denise and Peter and Doug and Heather all got to go to this. We did this panel on visual impairments and comic books. And I've met some great people because of that. Tony Stevens has become a big fan, and we inspired him to create his own comic books and to write and to draw. So, you know, that is amazing. Marika Davis was a visually impaired artist that went to the Foundation for Blind Children as well. You know, we kind of helped inspire her. You know, we didn't do too much after that. You know, we were trying to to write the story, to do a full-length book, and to figure out how to do this program. We first did it with Microsoft Slideshow. You know, it was PowerPoint. It was rough, and it was not what we wanted. We wanted people to be able to download it and use it on their phone and or their tablet or their computer and do it that way. But it wasn't coming together. So we went traditional print route. You know, let's see. Then the following year, 2016, I did my very first show. My first show ever was at Tempe Fan Con in 2016 at the Tempe Library. I think I was one of maybe 10 or 15 vendors that were there. I had one art print from Sam's Adventures and a flyer to tell people about what we were doing. And that was it. That was all we had. And Peter was there dressed as Captain Picard. And that was it. You know, it was just me and my girlfriend at the time, who was pregnant. Not my kid. That's a whole other story. I can go into that if people message about it. But, you know, and then that was the end of January. February rolled around, and then mid-March. And near the latter half of March, I had a heart attack and I died. I wasn't able to catch my breath for about 2 weeks. Had no idea what was going on. I thought I was just sick, maybe had bronchitis or something, pneumonia. Thought it was walking pneumonia for the longest. They told me at the hospital that I was having a heart attack and that they did not have a room for me, so that they were going to take me to Phoenix St. Luke's. They put me in the ambulance, and the next thing I know, I passed out, and I didn't wake up for 2 weeks. And they had put me into a medically induced coma, and it was hard. It really was hard. My friends came and saw me, from what I understand, almost every day. The girl that I was with almost took me off of life support. Thankfully, my mom showed up and canceled that. My kids were upset. Gabe and Logan were terrified. And I woke up, and the first thing that I asked was, are we going to Comic-Con? Because during my coma, my business partner from 4 years prior, who had submitted an application to Phoenix Comic-Con on our behalf, got the phone call or the email saying, hey, we have a spot for you. Do you want it? and everybody was excited, and we got in, and that began our journey at Phoenix Comic Con for 2016, 17, 18, and 19. We were at Phoenix Comic Con. We sold a lot of art prints. We had yet to have a book. We did not have a book. We were working on it, but we couldn't figure out how to write the script. We couldn't get it together. It was a mixture of my stubbornness with artists that we did not mesh well with. And we finally ran into an artist who said that he would do it, and his name was Latik Curry, and he illustrated the first issue of Stan's Adventures. He did an amazing job. Chandra, my best friend in the whole wide world, colored it and lettered it and did an amazing job. And we released the first issue of Stan's Adventures in 2019. That was our very first time ever doing it, and it did really well. We did small shows. We did Phoenix Comic Con again in 2017. So 2019 was our last Phoenix Comic Con. That is water under the bridge. But 2019 was the start of the pandemic. 2019, 2020, and everything shut down. And we didn't have anything going on for a good 2 years. And in that time, we could have been further ahead than what we were. But for some reason, everything just kind of stagnated. Creatively and personally and professionally. 2020, 2021 was just stagnant, and we came across another artist that's local here, Scott Shihai. He asked for the script for issue 2, and I sent it to him, and he had it illustrated within a month. And we shot him issue 3, and he had that one illustrated within a month. So Stan's Adventures ended up being issues 1, 2, and 3. We were working on, at the time last year, a prequel story for one of the characters, Bungawalla. I had written a 16-page story, like a prequel story for Bungawalla, and Scott passed away, unfortunately, unexpectedly, at the end of August, early September, and it floored me and everybody that worked with him. That was a shock, and it still kind of is. I loved Scott like a brother. He gave me insight. He gave me advice. He helped me become a better creator for myself and for my business. And I can never ever repay him for that. I try and live up to his standards almost every day, but it's hard because he's gone. And he's not coming back, and it hurts. It really, really does. It's not something that I can wish upon anybody, especially if you've lost a friend, a family member, a loved one, anything like that. It hurts, and it's really the main reason why I'm here doing this. It's been 8-9 months since he's passed, and I'm floundering, and I don't know what to do. And it was during a talk with a friend of mine who is also a comic book creator here in Phoenix, Bill Kelly. He suggested I go and do a podcast because I know I know a lot of people here in town. I was a fan before I got into the business as a publisher and a creator and a writer. So I know a lot of them on a personal level. Jeff Pena, Val Hotsberg, Ben Glendenning, Eric Mengel, Al Sparrow, Scott Sheehy. I know these guys. I know these ladies. And they're all wonderful, wonderful people. And I love every single one of them. I'm a fan of all of them. And so Bill told me, it's like, dude, you know everybody. You could have enough shows for at least 6 months if you interview these people. And I'm like, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to try something different, because it feels like sometimes I'm just throwing up a bunch of balls in the air and trying to catch them all at once. So I've been writing here and there. I actually sent a script over to Latique Curry, a short 12-page script for my Bureau of Imaginary Friends series that I want to do. I'm hoping that'll be out by this fall. I'm hoping for maybe Horror Fest, Artists Assemble Horror Fest in October, but I don't know. So I'm taking a stab at doing a podcast, even if it's just me rambling and talking about crazy stuff, which, trust me, I can do. I have plenty of crazy stuff to talk about. But I just wanted to do like an introductory video where people could learn and talk, could learn about me. And, this is me. I'm flawed. I'm not going to admit that I'm perfect. And I don't think anybody's perfect. But, I want to thank the people that have pushed me to do this. I want to thank my mom. I want to thank my kids, Gabe and Logan, and Ray, and Chandra, and Doug, and Peter, and Denise, and Bill, and Latique, and Scott Sheehy up in the giant drawing room of Marvel up in the sky, because the man could have worked for Marvel. He should have been working for Marvel. But so I'm just going to close this out. I'll probably post another one in about a week or so. I'll record these when I can. But, this is me. This is me in a nutshell. Kris Newton, writer, creator, blind guy, owner of Core 6 Media. If you see me out and about here in Phoenix, then hey, great, say hi. I'm more than happy to talk about my disability. I'm more than happy to talk about, anything that you want to ask me. But yeah, this is me. And I hope you enjoyed this little video. It's probably longer than it should have been, but yeah. So thank you for watching, and hit that like and subscribe button. Okay. Thanks, guys.